Hey guys, welcome to WOW. Uh, Absolutely glad if you're able to check this out. If you can, pass it around. I just like to come to you guys on Sundays and give you some encouragement. If you don't know me, I'm Mark Shell. Been a full-time minister for 31 years. And this COVID stuff has shut me down, but not my desire to help people. And I'm so glad that you're here this morning. And do this every week if you possibly can, and just join in with me. I have another service I have to get to, so I will not hold you long. But I had on my heart, because of the climate we're in, COVID, the political climate, and all of that, we need to learn how to live a satisfied life no matter what we go through. Absolutely need to live and learn to live a satisfied life. Satisfaction comes from knowing your identity. And I will just say this up front. I'm old enough to not care. I am not politically correct. And so hopefully what I am about to tell you does not offend you. If it does, then you may need to redefine your existence. But we all have to lose, and I am talking the political climate. I'm talking all of that stuff right now. We have to lose the adjective of our existence. An adjective, and you all know this, I'm talking to adults. An adjective always modifies a noun. I am not a Native American, even though I have Cherokee in me. You are not a Scottish American, even though your ancestry is from Scotland. You are not African American, even though your ancestors came from Africa. When you become just an American, you lose all of the bias. You lose all of the frustration. And I'm sorry, the allergies are bad. Weather in Oklahoma is crazy in August. It's usually in the hundreds, and it's been in the 80s, and then all of a sudden it goes back to the hundreds. So anyway, if my voice breaks, excuse me. Just sinuses. Not cursed, just human. But we have to lose that adjective. And when you can, number one, you're going to live at peace with people. Okay? And so I encourage you to start praying, because if you're watching this, you're probably a believer, and you need to pray, God, help me lose my adjective, because who you identify with brings that culture into your spirituality, and your spirituality is the existence of who you are, how you think. But what I was thinking today, Genesis 8:22, as long as the earth remains, there will be seed time and harvest. Now, most of you understand the seed. And I'm seeing you guys chime in, and my bifocals will not allow me to see what you're saying. I am so sorry. But I'm going to stick with this. I'm not ignoring you. Please don't think I'm ignoring you. I can't read it right now. But I appreciate all you guys chiming in. But when you can come to appreciate time, and when I say appreciate, I mean when you understand time. Genesis 8:22, there is seed, time, and harvest. I understand seed, we understand harvest. But when you can understand time, you have conquered life. And I want to help you today. I'm going to be blunt in your face, if you don't mind, straight in your face. It may shock you. I don't want to offend anyone. That is never my intent. But if you can be offended, you're insecure. And hopefully your insecurities will begin to leave as you understand this. Again, Genesis 8:22, as long as there is seed, time, and harvest. The power of Pentecost I was raised in, which I totally appreciate, and then I moved into the Word of Faith, which just spoke to the mountain. But what I have seen is lacking is people do not appreciate the time, and you can't appreciate what you don't understand. If something in your life is aggravating you, agitating you, it's because you don't understand it. And so this little session, and it's going to be a quickie, but this little session is about understanding time. So, okay, you want what you want. You believe, okay, Jesus provided that. That is my promise. I'm going to flow with that. But when things go wrong, is it the enemy hindering you from the victory? Or is it the Spirit of God protecting you from the defeat of stress? Because if you're stressing out in a struggle, it's because you're not getting your way. Anytime stress comes, it is because you're trying to rush a season. I'm a summertime guy. You give me a beach, you give me summer weather on the lake or at the beach, I'm good. I am not, for my New England friends, my Northern America friends, Michigan, Iowa, Nebraska, you all have winters. I love you guys, but you have adapted. I have not. And so, do I want, when winter comes, my oldest son, Derek, he is the fall guy. He does not appreciate the summer, and I can understand that. Because sometimes it can get really, really hot here in Oklahoma. Humidity and dew point is through the roof. But I love that. But just because I love that, I cannot rush the season. You may be believing for something that you cannot rush. You only get stressed out when you're trying to rush the season. So again, and I hate to be repetitive, I hope it doesn't become redundant, but you cannot rush the season. You sow a seed and you have to wait for the time. Thank God for the seasons, because the seasons demand your patience. So my question is this: no matter what you're going through, it may be familia, it may be on the job, whatever it may be, is it the enemy hindering you from your victory, or is it the Spirit of God protecting you from getting stressed out? Now that's a question I don't know. I would love to hear if there is another minister that would address this issue, because again, if you don't know me, I will address issues that religion will not, because religion always blames the devil or the enemy for holding back your blessing, but sometimes it's not the enemy. Sometimes it's God protecting you from you trying to impede your next season. Now, what are you talking about, Mark? What I'm talking about is what you're going through. Do you perceive it as a hindrance or a block? Because when what you're going through that is against you, or you perceive as against you, when it's a hindrance is a battle and a victory. A battle and a victory. When it's a hindrance, it always has a victory at the next step. But when it's a block, there's never a change. And you feel like you have to force the issue to happen for you to be happy. It is God when you see changes of seasons. There is a time to sow and a time to reap. Now, you understand the word time. We don't like the word time. When we have a problem, we just want it to be fixed. But sometimes it's not just fixed. So why does God use seasons to manifestation? So when the cycles have finished, you can only give God the glory for bringing you through it. If there was never a season between sowing and harvest, you could say, look what my hands have done. But when there's time in between, you have to give God the glory. A satisfied life, and that's what I want to talk to you about for maybe 5-10 minutes. A satisfied life is when you know the difference between a hindrance and a block. And again, a hindrance is when you have a battle and victory, just like David and Saul, Jesus and the Pharisees. You know it's going to be okay, so you don't mind the time. If you mind the time you're having to go through, well, Mark, how do I know I mind the time I'm having to go through? Well, how much do you keep praying about it? Then you mind the time. How much do you feel like, well, maybe I need to fast more or confess my sins more? you matter the time. When time is not of essence in the believer, then you have conquered frustration. You let something die when you let it stop defining your demeanor. Is what you're going through changing your attitude? Then you don't appreciate the time between the seasons. Do I get cold in the winter? Oh my Lord. It can get, you've heard that old song from the old play Oklahoma, and the winds come sweeping down the plain, and my Iowa friends watching, you get the winds before I get them. But when they come sweeping down here, I wish they would make a U-turn, because I am not the cold weather person. But I clothe myself the way I need to tolerate the season. Can you tolerate your season? Because if you can't, you have not matured in Christ. You have not. I don't care how long you've been saved. And again, I want everybody to be happy, but I am not politically correct. I'm not scripturally correct. I'm not genderly correct. I'm not racially correct. I believe we are all one. I don't care. And I have so many black friends in South Carolina, and the ones that know me, they don't care that I'm white, and I don't care that they're black. Every life matters, because every life was created by God. Your skin color is an adjective. Your demeanor is an adjective. Do not rely on what you think you've been taught you are. There are seasons in life. And what I'm going to show you this morning goes for you no matter where your genealogy went back to, or your DNA went back to. It does not matter. A satisfied life is when you know the difference between a hindrance and a block. Racism and the root of it comes from not knowing the difference between a hindrance and a block. And so when we as Christians learn the difference between those things, you can live peacefully amongst all men. I think that's what the Apostle Paul said. What do you do when you really realize you can't change the situation? Do you let it die, or do you work harder? Frustration is proof you're working the flesh too hard. You have not let the flesh die. And Kenneth, I just saw you pop up, man. I love you guys. Oh, so much I do. Now, watch this. The word says we have been made kings and priests. A king is simply understanding what is yours to conquer and what is yours to be left alone. You conquer a hindrance. You leave a block alone. Now, let me go back, and don't let me be too elementary with this, and I'm not treating anyone as if you don't have understanding, but let me remind you, a hindrance goes from a battle to a victory, a battle to a victory. It may not be where you're wanting it to be, but it's getting better from what it was. A block means nothing is ever changing. So being a king means that you know the difference between a hindrance and a blocks. The enemy hinders you. God blocks you. God will always block you from stress. My oldest son, Derek, is 32. Youngest son, Parker, is about to be 18. I will give them instruction. I will give them some understanding, but it's ultimately their decision. Do you want to be hindered or do you want to be blocked? That's up to you. Stress is proof you're trying to do what God says is not in your business. I always look out for my kids. I can tell them, don't walk out there across the highway at a slow pace with people coming 75 miles an hour. But it's ultimately their decision. It was not the oncoming traffic that killed them. It was the lack of knowledge. I could blame the devil for hitting one of my boys. Oh my God, that's tragic. Oh my gosh, I wouldn't want that. Not at all. Nobody would. And I know I'm getting a little graphic, but some people need to be shocked. You and I both, have walked out in front of traffic because we want what we want when we want it. And it does not happen that way all the time. And then who gets the blame? God. I don't know why God let this happen. I don't know why God allowed this. God will always block you from stress. And if you hear anything I say, God will always block you from stress, because stress is proof you're worshiping your problem. Okay? And so you and I both need to start understanding, comprehending a little more that God is for you, not against you. He is always for you and not against you. So how will you know if something is God's will or not? How will you know if it's a hindrance or a block? Because there's always peace. And you move on in spite of the hindrance. Because remember, a hindrance is, I'm so sorry for the sinuses, change of weather. But you are always in that place where you know what? I had a battle, I got a victory. I had a battle, I got a victory. I got a battle, I got a victory. That's a hindrance. But when you're always having to fight for the victory, it may be God blocking you from the stress. And some of you guys are getting a hold of this. I go back, and I will use scripture, just in case some of y'all think this is all my opinion. I can prove it in the Word. In the book of 2 Samuel, the 12th chapter, David, in the 11th, 12th chapter, and I won't take the time to quote it to you because I've got to go here in about 5 minutes. But David had his eye on a woman from the palace, Bathsheba. And he thought, yeah, I want that woman. And he did. He had her. He was king. He could have anyone he wanted. Now, here is a believer, and David was a believer. He got what he thought he wanted, and he slept with her, and they had a child. And the child became ill. And the word says there in 2 Samuel 12, I think it's around the 14th, 15th, 16th verse, starts the dissertation of what happened. But the child got ill, and David began weeping and fasting until he saw it was not working. So let me ask you this. Are you having to weep and fast over what you need to see happen? You're not fighting the enemy. You're fighting your ego. I'm all for fasting. I take nothing away from fasting, but you never fast to make God do something. Otherwise, God can be bought. And that may aggravate some of my religious friends. Again, I say, fasting is good medicinally. But to move God, you are absolutely wasting your time. Because fasting changes what you focus on, not the way your seasons change. You never fast and pray to change your seasons. There will always be seed, time, and harvest. You cannot fast your time away. So quit that. If you're doing it, please quit. Realize what is a hindrance and what is a block. Now watch this. When David figured out the child had died, he got up from his fasting and he asked the servants, bring me something to eat. And they said, you didn't want to eat or anything during all of this. And he said, well, now that the child is dead, why would I fast anymore? In other words, why would I keep fasting if I can't change the season? And so you have to shift. How do I say it? You have to shift from feeding your ego to building your confidence. Arrogance will cause you to weep and pray and fast to produce something God didn't initiate. Let the fruit of your arrogance die. When you and I can come to appreciate the season, it's not that we love it. We come to know that's just the way it rolls. You know, I can tell my sons, don't move at a slow pace across the highway. They have to build that wisdom. And you and I need to build wisdom. You may not like what you're going through, but fasting and prayer is not going to change it. Fasting and prayer is going to change your mind, not your situation. And so all those years we were taught the other way, I'm sorry to say it, but we were taught wrong. We were absolutely taught wrong. And don't leave this thinking, Mark, don't believe in fasting and prayer. Of course I do. But it's not to move God. It's to make you come into a mentality to appreciate the season you're in. So, how do I know when something is a hindrance of the enemy or a block from God? You reach the place you just say, Lord, it's in your hands, and I trust you so much. That is the summation of what fasting brings. Okay? Now, if medicinally you need to fast, fast. And fasting just means to consume what is consuming you. You don't always fast food. You could fast a TV program. You could fast, for me, I love golf. I love the lake. I love the beach. And God says, stay off the beach. I just want to talk to you. And what's God going to tell me when he talks to me? Trust me. So see, I just saved you guys a cheeseburger. I'm sorry, that was wrong. But you have to appreciate and get away from having to work God's goodness. God's good in spite of us. He is absolutely good in spite of us. So let the fruit of your arrogance, wanting to change the season you're in, let it die. I go through things. You go through things. You're going through things right now as well as I am. But you know what I have learned in this season? I'm not going to rush the season. I will not rush the season. I am a king and I am a priest. But a king knows what is mine to conquer and what is mine to leave alone. Anything that's causing you stress, it's God blocking you from rushing the season. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means you weren't called to push it. So it's not God always calling you to a fast. It is not God always calling you to pray harder. It could be your ego trying to manipulate your season. Remember, there is seed, there is time, and there is harvest. I was only taught the seed and the harvest. No one ever taught me the time. So I hope that helps you today. Very, very much I hope it helps you. And just a side note, my boys know not to take a slow pace across a highway. And thank God for that. We don't always impart knowledge. We impart wisdom. And I want to give you wisdom today. Wisdom is, you may be praying, God, save my family, my kids getting worse, and oh, I need to pray more, I need to fast more. You know what? It's already in the promises. Why don't you just let it die? When David realized my fasting and prayer is not going to change my season, he rose up and ate. God was not let me put it this way, the enemy was not hindering him. God was blocking him. Because when he went back to Bathsheba, even though he had messed up and authorized Uriah to be killed at the enemy line, oh my God, we've all done things. It's like, and I've said this so many times, it's almost like a motto. If there was a refund line in life, I would be in the front of it. There's not one, or I'd be there. But I can say this. I have found out God to be so good. And one of the most important things I have learned, not as a minister, but just as a believer on life's journey, is stop trying to force the seasons. And so I hope that makes your day better. And that's what I've tried to instill in my boys. You're going to go through things, but go through them. And if it's a hindrance, there'll be a little hope. There'll be a little hope. But when you're blocked, there is no hope at all. And so I hope that helps you today. And I'm so glad you guys chimed in. I could go on with this one for a few hours, honestly, but I've got to be somewhere in 20 minutes and do another service. But thank you so much for your support. During this COVID stuff, I always book a year and a half out, and my schedule is totally out of the water. And for all these years, 31 years, we survive by the goodness of God, number one, and God using people to support the ministry. That's how I travel. That's how I do what I do. And you guys have been great supporters. And I'm not the ministry that sends you a t-shirt and a mug and a magazine every month, and I'm not against those. I just don't do that. But all of your support is so appreciated. I absolutely, and I want to tell you, do you hear me? Can you see my eyes? I appreciate it. And so, if you've never done that or partnered with the ministry, just go to markshellsministries.com. If you have any questions about this, please email me. I'll answer any question of anything I teach. And so, anyway, enjoy your season. The greatest worship you could ever get God is not on a bended knee. It's with a smile saying, it's going to be all right. So understand, and I'll reiterate it one more time before I leave you. When it's a hindrance, something good will happen that keeps you going. But when God's blocking you, He's blocking you from stress. So if you're stressed out, let that baby die. Rise up, eat. And when David went back to Bathsheba, he laid with her again, and they produced Solomon. So maybe what you're fasting and praying for is not the best thing. The best thing is yet to come if you will begin to just trust God and realize the difference between a hindrance and a block. You guys be blessed today. Again, visit the website, and I'm so glad you tuned in, and I've seen a lot of you guys come across the screen, but I am not a multi-dimensional person. My mind goes 1,000 places, but I see you guys chiming in, and when I'm talking, I'm focused on what I'm supposed to tell you. So if I don't respond to you, it's not because I don't appreciate it. Please don't feel ignored. That's the society we live in. Everybody needs recognition, and the fear of not being recognized. When you need to be recognized, you'll throw in an adjective. Quit throwing in an adjective. You're not a Baptist. You're not Assembly of God. You're not Church of God. You're just a Christian. Lose your adjective, and you'll appreciate your unity. We are all one in Christ Jesus, and we are all one as Americans. Y'all have a blessed day, and I will see you next week, if not before.